this episode, there will be news injections, peep shows, riots, and of course, indie games, and maybe even more of this. Indie Game Riot, with Patreon supporters like Suzanne J, Richard K, and starring Keen Hot and Juicy Maverick. Get in on the action by visiting patreon.com/Indie Game Riot. Indie Game Riot, coming to a computer screen near you.
This week we continue to star for our art and consider changing careers to pillaging Viking villages. Maybe when we're done we should move on to London. This and more on episode 128 of Indie Game Riot.
Indie Game Riot!
Hey everybody, this is Josh, and I am joined once again by Eric M. Hunter. You can find him at Eric Hunter on Twitter. It is not at Eric M. Hunter, as I thought last episode. So if you were there for last episode and found the gay porn star, I'm sorry.
Tell him I said hi.
Maybe you were happy about that. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, so unfortunately no third host tonight, but that's okay because Eric and I can lock it down. We've got a lot of really cool stuff. PlayDead is involved, the Limbo and Inside devs. If you remember Francisco Gonzalez, he goes by, who made Shardlight. We have some news about his new game, Lamplight City, and himself, which was interesting. We found that out recently. Smithsonian Institute taking on indie games, and of course Passpartout, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Northgard and Fallen London, all on today's show. But first, Eric, how's your week been?
It's been good. Been busy, both with creating and playing.
Yeah.
So I made I like making the mistakes of thinking that I can play games that I can't play, but then I force myself to play them. So
give us an example.
Well, the easy examples are Dark Souls.
Oh, fuck that.
So, exactly. Any of those games are terrible games. I do not recommend them. Bloodborne is just a downright awful game that I continuously play and I hate myself for.
I got Dark Souls 2 I'm subscribed to that Humble Bundle thing, Humble Monthly.
Yep.
And I got Dark Souls 2 in that. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do it because I'm a game hoarder. And it's free. Well, kind of. But I'm probably never going to play. I've never been a fan of any of the Dark Souls games. And there's a few games out there I've not been like, not that I dislike them, but I've not been a fan of them. And I feel like I would get like crucified if I came across the wrong people.
Let's hear it, man.
Yeah,
what
Dark Souls is one of them.
Okay.
The whole series, I don't like them. Bloodborne, I appreciated more than Dark Souls, I think. But those are the kinds of games I like watching people play. Like, I watched Game Grumps play through both Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3.
As did I.
And then the other one is Zelda. I don't even like the new Zelda. And I will say that it's more intriguing than any other Zeldas I've seen.
Right.
But I've never been a fan of Zelda. It's just like there's other games that do the same things. And even if Zelda was like the original for that genre, if you, I don't even know if it's true, but it's just, I don't know. I've never been a fan.
Well, I think like within the community, there's a stigma of you have to like the good games. And it's like, so I feel exactly the same way with you, with the exception of Zelda. I love Zelda. Zelda's my life. Yeah, I love Zelda. But so like Bloodborne and like I recognize them as being great games for what they're trying to do. Like I think it was fairly bold for them to be like, we're going to make a game that's extremely cutthroat and fuck you if you don't like it. Like you know, because that immediately deteriorates a lot of the community. So I respect that, but I also respect that and understand and recognize that it's just not a game for me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. You know, like I'm okay that, like, as much as I do play Bloodborne or Dark Souls and I'm terrible at them, they're just not games for me. You know what I mean?
See,
so
I used to do Let's Plays, and I still want to, but you know, I'm busy with family and this and everything else. But I'm always like shying away from games. Like, at least you go for it, because I'm always shying away from games like that where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this.
Right.
You know, whether it be because of difficulty or because I'm a pussy with certain horror games. So I'm like, I don't know if I can finish this. I don't think I want to play this because I don't like the feeling of not finishing games out if I'm going to put it on the channel.
Right.
Which I do have a couple games I do want to finish, but and like I don't know how I got through Outlast and Amnesia when I played those back when they were still relevant. I guess Outlast is still kind of, but
yeah, I mean, it's all right.
So props to you for that. And we mentioned like some episodes, a few episodes ago, but we were talking about how certain games kind of maybe that was the last episode, but how they kind of like sparked their own genre, and Dark Souls is kind of like that.
Absolutely.
So I mentioned games I like kind of do the same thing, but I like better. And there's a lot of indie games like that, or like Dark Souls. I feel like I would be more willing to play than Dark Souls, like Salt and Sanctuary,
yep.
Titan Souls. Yeah.
Yep.
There was one other one I can't think of, but I don't know if that's an indie game thing or if I'm just a hipster or what. But
well, I think so. I recently played Titan Souls, and again, it's one of those games where it's like I enjoy the game for what it is. I'm terrible at it, but I still like playing it. But I think it's got enough of a different twist on the idea of a Dark Souls game that kind of like the idea of just having that, like, okay, it's all one hit. So it's one hit death for you and the enemy, and you only get one arrow, and you've got to constantly retrieve that arrow. Like that shtick or gameplay mechanic, calling it shtick makes it sound terrible, but that gameplay mechanic I feel is enough to kind of push me through. It's kind of the same idea with Salt and Sanctuary, where okay, like they're coming out and saying that this is Dark Souls, but what if Dark Souls was 2 dimensions? Right. Well, that completely wraps my whole brain of what Dark Souls is, because it's all about dodging and parrying and
in a 3D space, right?
In a 3D space. So when that's not there, so it's kind of like it's like a train wreck, you know, in slow motion. It's like I want to see if this is really good or if it's really bad, because
I think my biggest problem with those kinds of games, and that it's not as because of the innovation and creativity in those indie games to separate themselves from that. The problem I have with Dark Souls is the fact that I get really tired of repeating myself over and over and over. And if I die that much, especially in a game like that where it's not like unless you are like beautiful minding the save points all over the place and you know just the best routes to get to, like there's just way too much time sunk into just getting back to where you were and then probably failing again. And that's I mean it's the same kind of problem I have with like a lot of multiplayer games and things like that too. It's just like repetitiveness. I don't have the patience for it because it's like the same thing over and over and over just to grind out your to advance further.
One more level up. Yeah. So that is like that whole thing about what you mentioned earlier about not wanting to play a game that you're not sure if you can mention it. Like I cannot remember the last time I played an RPG game. Like a legit, like I played the Mario RPG games, like the Paper Mario games, which, I mean, you know, it's lukewarm RPG if you want to be that kind of person. But like a JRPG, like I haven't played one of those since I think I was like 14. That's me and a friend of mine were talking about that the really old school like RPGs like Phantasy Star and Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest, like they used grinding to prolong the game. That was the only reason it was there, you know? And it's such a weird stigma and a mechanic that started at such a young age to build that genre that it still exists today. Like there still isn't really a good way
Right.
of grinding or a good way of leveling up.
Same issue I have with like MMOs too. I
Yep.
hate it.
Yeah,
And
because it's like, okay, well, you're level 50. Well, now the enemies are level 50, so you might as well be level 1.
Right.
Why am I leveling up? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like a hoarding complex, which actually should attract me because I in games I am definitely a hoarder, a collector. I like doing that, and in real life a little bit too. Like I'm sitting next to a whole bunch of baseball cards, but and I mentioned earlier, I think before the show about like I hoard games, but it's something about the monotony. It's like, and it's so mundane. Like get like 20 pig skins, and the drop rate is like 0.02%.
right.
So you have to do it 1,000 times, and it's just not worth it. Like there's no like the worth it to boring job ratio is out of whack for me. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, I guess.
Well, I think it's just funny because it takes like these game mechanics that we've known since games were games, and just the weird stigmas that still exist because either nobody cared to figure out how to create a better way of doing it, or they thought this was enough. Like one of the things that still irks me in games today is that omniscient NPC who knows all about what buttons are on your controller, or like, oh, this statue will let you save your game. Right, yeah, like, oh, this statue will let you save your game. I don't know what that means. Have a nice day. Like, we haven't figured out a better way to do this, to incorporate some sort of like story element into it, or just make it just a simple overlay. Like, you see some games that that kind of try to, like Resident Evil. So like if you wanted to save your game, you were typing on a typywriter. Right. Why was that typewriter there? Nobody knows, but it wasn't like something
At least it was
strange.
A set piece.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't just some glowing dot on the map.
You know who? I don't know if I would say the game is that great, but they did a good job incorporating that kind of mechanic into the story of the game. Was The Evil Within?
Okay. Yeah.
Remember that? And it had those like weird mind doors because you were inside your mind. That was the whole point of it. You know what I mean? That was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool way to not only save but also to level up and get other story pieces.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of things like that. Like I'm constantly complaining about the double jump. Like I think the double jump is just the dumbest game mechanic, and why people still keep putting that in their games makes no sense, because it's like you're just like your character is a school kid. Yeah. Why can he jump 40 feet in front of him? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Whereas when you have games like PID, did you ever play PID?
No.
PID? So they had a kind of a twist on the double jump. Rather than being able to, jump and then jump again midair, you could throw down these beams of light that would kind of push you upwards. Oh, so you kind of got the effect.
No Time to Explain.
Yep.
This like laser beam
with with the guns. Yeah. So like that stuff makes sense to me. Or like Boogerman, if you played Boogerman back in the day, he could fart. Yeah. Totally made sense why you could get more air because he's farting. But
still
it's like
it still defeats physics, but at least there's a reasoning behind it.
Right. It's just, I don't know, these little things. It's like, why aren't people complaining about this more? Like,
you know what game I do give a pass mentioning Professor Oak is Pokemon. And I think, going back to the hoarding and collecting thing I'm into, is that they do make it in that game, in that franchise, they do make it worth my while to grind out those levels.
Yeah.
Because not only are you grinding out those levels, but you're to progress, but also while you're doing it, you're capturing and collecting more.
Right, and there's something like visually going on, like they're evolving into completely different Pokemon. Yeah. So that, it's just not a level 20 Pikachu. It's a level 20 Raichu. He's different now, like it's fun. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, my week has, I mentioned before, like it blurs together. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning of the show or before the show, but I've been working on Indie Revolution Expo. Mostly nonstop. I mean, between life things. But that is coming up soon. I'll talk more about that in Indie News.
I'm excited.
Injection.
Are you bored with the same old games?
Yeah.
Why, then give yourself an Indie News injection.
Thanks, Indie Games.
This week on Indie News Injection, the first thing I want to do is remind you all, as I said previously, about Indie Revolution Expo 2017. It is happening July 14th through the 16th. So that's only a few weeks away. Less than that, I think. Anyway, like 2.5 weeks. But, man, it's close. And I'm already working on, we got most of the things finalized. I'm already working on schedules. There's like a rough pass at the schedule. It's on the website so you can get an idea. But things are subject to change. I still got to work on some more, and I'm finalizing a couple of panels that hopefully will still be happening. Otherwise, I'll have to find something else to put in those spots, but that's okay. One thing I forgot to mention last episode is that we do have the T-shirts available for Indie Revolution Expo, the limited edition T-shirts for this specific year, because we have a new one every year. They are available on the merch store, which is on indiegameriot.com. And if you go to, I just recently changed the navigation on our website, but I think if you go to Indie Game Riot, or maybe it's just the show or something like that, there's a drop-down menu. It'll say merch. That'll take you there. You guys aren't stupid. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. But anyway, it's there. It'll be available until the end of Indie Revolution Expo. The winner of the Game Jam will get one for free. I'll buy myself one. Hopefully, and probably because since this year is kind of weird with it's basically Rev will hopefully be there. I don't think he'll have his computer set up by then because it's taken a while to save up for a new one, but he said he's going to borrow one from someone, so he'll be able to still do that for that weekend. So Rev will be there, and then Jacob is like 99% sure that he'll be able to do it that weekend too from Indie Hangover. So I'll have some help, and hopefully I can get them some shirts too and that sort of stuff. Maybe I'll get you a shirt too, depending on money, since you've been helping me out with the show.
Oh, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
So if anybody hasn't been on the merch site yet, this shit is super cheap.
Oh yeah,
like it is very inexpensive.
At first I thought you were trying to say it's fucking junk.
No. Like it is very inexpensive. Like this is because normally, and just at hindsight of things, like usually when you see some sort of like brand or a site or whatever, it's like, oh, we got t-shirts and stuff. It's like you're looking at $30 to $40 t-shirts. Oh, yeah. I'm looking at $19.99 for a men's tee IRX with the kick-ass spray paint logo. Like,
yeah, and it actually would be cheaper than that, except we have it on. It's two-sided, so there's something on the back of that one.
What?
Yeah, the other shirts don't have something on the back.
That is cool.
Those are like $15.49 or something like that. That's the only. Yeah, so it's we don't want to take like a huge cut of it, but the cut we do take does obviously go to support
right, of course,
RX and IGR. So,
but yeah, like these shirts are very inexpensive and they are really kick-ass looking.
And they do to counter what I thought you were trying to say earlier. They actually are pretty good quality. Like I was worried when I first signed up with it that it was just going to be like that weird. Like they just slap it on,
shitty
like iron on type of thing where it's on, and then it will like crack and rip off as you wear it and dry it. No, these are actually pressed into the fabric, so it's not going to like rip and crack and for a long time. You're going to have to wear it quite a bit for it to fade away or something. So, and if it does fade, you can always get another one.
There you go. And I would recommend, so you can change the color of the shirt. I'm looking at the yellow one right now. I think I'm going to get the yellow one.
Oh, really?
It looks really cool.
I forget which. I think I just put it on black as a default, but I didn't check out too many of the other colors.
I've got so many black shirts. It's like I need more color in my life, and yellow's calling my name right now.
We're joining the goth club.
Right.
So yeah, Indie Revolution Expo, July 14th through the 16th. Be there. It's going to be a ton of fun. Lots of indie games and a lot of opportunity to kind of mingle with devs and industry professionals and other fans of indie games. So.
Like me.
Yeah, you should be there. Oh, yeah, and Eric's going to be doing a panel there, so you don't want to miss that. Next up, after I actually do my job and show you the logo, I should have done that earlier. I apologize. There's our logo. That's the main logo, Indie Revolution Expo. However, this year's like limited edition logo, I don't have loaded into OBS, so I can't show it, but you can go look at it. It is also cool, made by our graphics guy, Prep, Preposter, and if you know who he is if you've been around for a little bit. Anyway, You know who else has been around for a little bit? Speaking of indie devs and stuff like that, PlayDead, the people that made Limbo and Inside, which is recent. One of the founders of PlayDead has decided to split off. Dino Patty, I want to call him Dino, but I'm pretty sure it's Dino.
I think it's Dino, yeah.
Yeah, Dino Patty. He's splitting off to, quote, seek new challenges, and has made a studio called Jump Ship. And he's working with a film animator named Chris Olsen, who's apparently worked on like pretty large feature films for probably making special effects and stuff like that. And they're making a sci-fi action adventure called Somerville. All they have out right now...
I was going to say, there is a trailer.
Yeah, all I have out right now is a teaser trailer. And it's like 20 seconds long, and really what you're seeing to the right of me on here is basically what you're going to see in the trailer, except it's moving.
Right. There's some yelling in the background.
Yeah, I will say that, I mean, you can tell that this was done by the animator guy, because not only is he in the film industry where they give this kind of bullshit teaser, but it's very well animated. I can tell he's experienced, because it looks like if this is what's going to be in the game, and I always say if because we've been burned many a times.
Yep.
But if this is what's going to be in the game, it's going to look beautiful. So, and I have to give benefit of the doubt, being that Dino knows what he's doing when it comes to making games. Limbo and Inside are both very good games, and it looks great. So I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that it's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on that before we move on?
So I mean, man, can you go 3? Do you know what I mean? Like, can you do 3 home runs in a row? Because, I mean, Limbo is fantastic.
Limbo is one of those games that I would consider, because we talked about doing like a Hall of Fame, and Limbo, I think, would probably end up in there.
Yeah.
Inside, people complained about Inside being like Limbo Plus.
Is it though? Like, see, that's what I like about this. That's what I like about this developer, is because they try to create compelling games, but they are so focused on what the story is, and I think that's something that gets lost on us currently as next gen gamers. Is that we forget that there's more than just mechanics to a game? Like,
well, the thing is too that much like music or directors in movies. Game devs have their own style as well, and you'll see different styles from the same studio, if they're feeling venturous. But there is a specific style. I mean, when you look at the Behemoth, when you look at Supergiant Games, you can tell it's from them, and it's kind of the same thing with PlayDead. And I think it's not so much that they copy pasted and then added to Inside
I think that's
Limbo
just their thing.
Inside.
That's just what they do.
Yeah, I think that's what they did, and then Inside did add to the formula. I think there was more depth and to the puzzles, a little bit more freedom. It wasn't as linear. It was a little bit longer.
Right.
And I actually think the story itself was deeper when it comes to the commentary involved, the narrative. So anyway, but from the looks of this, I think Dino might be wanting to get away from that PlayDead style.
I think he's looking, I think he's looking to make a more mechanical game. That makes sense. Like, I think he's looking for more about what the fundamentals of the game are, rather than an essence of what a game is.
Yeah, he probably wants to make something a little bit more complex. Maybe it's something that would challenge his programming skills.
Sure. I mean, everybody needs a Chips challenge, man.
Yeah, man.
Love this Chips challenge.
Speaking of challenging, let's switch this up. Speaking of challenging, I mentioned earlier we had some news about Francisco Gonzalez, who made Shardlight, very awesome point-and-click adventure. I would highly suggest going and play it. And that game was actually published by Wadjet Eye. Wadjet Eye is pretty well known, especially in the indie sphere, for their point-and-click adventures. They made the is it Blackwell? No.
No,
now I can't. Now I'm gonna shit the bed and forget what.
We have to look at it. It's not Blackwell though.
Yeah. But anyway, they made a lot of well-known point and clicks and published a lot of well-known point and clicks. Techno Babylon was another one that we talked about on the show before. And See, Holly in the chat is saying Blackwell.
Is it Blackwell?
I'm pretty sure it's Blackwell. But anyway, they make these point-and-click adventures, and they were going to publish Lamplight City, which is the new game that Francisco is working on.
Right.
But apparently, about a year ago, and this just came out, apparently about a year ago, they decided to part ways. Francisco was no longer going to work for Wadjet Eye, and he was just going to make this game. Or they were still going to publish this game, but then apparently recently that fell apart too. I mean, we're never going to know really why. And I did contact him on Twitter and DMs, but I didn't want to. We're not really that kind of outlet to like push for drama and.
Yeah, we're not news breaking drama bullshit.
Yeah, that kind of bullshit. So I didn't push him to like what happened. I just wanted to say, hey man, that sucks. Sorry that happened. And I did ask him if he talked to any other publishers. He said he did he's in contact with a few other publishers.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And I wanted to say, hey, I hope this is still happening. He's like, definitely, it's still definitely happening. So if you were looking forward to Lamplight City, it is still happening, and we're also going to feature it during IRX, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you want to, search on IndieGameRiot.com, search Francisco Gonzalez or Shardlight. We did an interview with him, and that'll give you a little bit more of a look into his developer mind as well. And but anyway, he's in contact with us, so the game is still definitely happening. It's a beautiful game. Shardlight had awesome art in it for like pixel art, that kind of classic point and click adventure pixel art. But this he's definitely improved, and I think he is working with someone with art, but he's definitely improved with like lighting and detail.
Yeah, I was gonna say the shading, you can tell.
Yeah, so it looks
readily
even nicer. It looks even nicer. I'm super excited for Shardlight or for Lamplight City to come out and to talk about during IRX.
Yeah, I like I've always been a big fan of kind of that Cthulhu / like Leviathan, turn of the century London creepy shit going on, like so
Sherlock Holmes times.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about I'm excited about this one.
All right. Well, last piece of news that we should be excited about is the Smithsonian American Art Museum. So the Smithsonian Institute holds from time to time a basically like an arcade event where they celebrate video games, and they always have a big indie game. They call it Indie Arcade, and that's why you see the logo. And that logo is actually from a couple years ago because I couldn't find one for this year, so I don't know if it's like a thing that they do last minute. But anyway, I thought it was really cool that they were going to do this again. If you remember, we had, I think it was Richard Kelly Rick, who made. God, my brain does not work at the end of the day. He made Hero's Journal, Anyway, it was really cool, like choose your own adventure style with some card game involved, mobile game, which I highly suggest going to get. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
Hero's Guard.
Hero's Guard, yeah.
Hero's Guard the Journal. That's what it was. Jesus.
Hero's Guard the Journal.
Yeah. Highly suggest.
Did you take your meds?
I didn't. Thank you for reminding me.
You should probably take your meds.
It's not mental meds, but I should take my meds.
You should totally take your meds, bro.
Yeah, I'll do that at the break. Fuck. Stupid diabetes. Anyway, I wanted to go through this and just kind of take a look at some of the like. If you look through the list that they have of some of the games that are going to be involved. They have some selected ones at the top, but they have the full list down at the bottom of the article, which we'll put in the link. Do you see any of that pop out to you that you're like pretty like, oh, this looks like something that should be in a museum?
So if you go through the list, they give like some short descriptions. Like they're not putting in like, Super Meat Boy. Yeah. They're not putting in Mark of the Ninja. So like they've got Smash Bro, which I do know of. Smash Bro uses an alternative controller to aid in training children with the use of the prosthetic limbs. So they kind of go like that. What is that super, super, super niche? I'm sorry, niche game that we can showcase. But like Burly Minute C, that's a great game.
There are some games here that I know the devs. Lunaform we met a couple times. The devs for that. Pixel Noir, which I have somewhere, an awesome T-shirt, and they gave us a T-shirt and their soundtrack, which I have up on my shelf. I don't feel like getting. Pixel Noir is super cool. I'm glad they're getting some more attention. Perception just recently came out. Which is like a horror game about being blind. It's like basically using what's kind of like echolocation, I guess you could say. Sort of. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird the way that it's beautiful art though.
Is kind of the Metronomicon, Danny, which is a game we're actually featuring at IRX this year. Danny Garfield, Puba is the developer studio for that. That is an awesome rhythm fighting
game
RPG. It's a weird mishmash, but it's really cool, and they license some really good music for it, like Shiny Toy Guns in there, which is surprising to me. I don't know how they afforded that. I mean, they're not like super popular bands, but I know.
Or maybe Tiny Toy Guns are just whoring themselves out. I mean, you know.
I guess that's true too.
It could go the other way, Josh. It could go the other way.
I feel like Tiny Toy Guns might be more famous, but I don't know. Maybe they fell into obscurity, and I just have a good memory, which has been proven wrong 3 times tonight. But anyway, it's something cool to check out. And if you are a dev, you might want to keep an eye on this next time they show off games at the Smithsonian American Art Museum, so you can get your game there and feel like a plebe,
a work of art.
Yeah. You know what else won't make you feel like a plebe?
It's probably going to be starting a riot.
Yeah, starting a riot. Good job, sir. This week on Starting the Riot, we are talking about Passpartout. Passpartout? Passpartout? I don't know if that's right or not. But anyway, we're talking about that. Passpartout, the starving artist. And you are an artist, and you literally get to draw in the game. You can make whatever you want, and people will be walking by on the street. You start off in a garage, not what you're seeing in now. I think this particular gameplay, they're a little bit more advanced. But you start off in this garage, like basically homeless, because it's like you in a garage with an easel and paint supplies, a mattress on the floor, a lamp, and like something hanging from your wall. And you stick your paintings in these, like on these bricks outside of the garage. People walk by and they buy them. And the game can tell. It seems like it judges quality based on, like you can tell the colors. Obviously,
there's got to be some sort of recognition that's going on.
Line work. As you go, you unlock different tools that you can use. Like I haven't gotten too far. Like I'm still in the garage, but I did unlock like basically a spray can tool, along with like the regular paintbrush, and some people are really good from what I can see. Like this guy isn't too terrible. It's not like Van Gogh or anything like that, but it's not too terrible.
Still has both his ears. So.
It seems like it can judge color. Like, and the people that come up and look at your paintings to buy them, they'll be like, "There's not enough color in this," or "I don't like the contrast," or blah blah blah. Or it could
some pretentious bullshit.
Yeah. And there's different kinds of customers too. There's like these the hipsters, which usually are the people that start out buying your stuff because you're underground. You know what I mean? Like, and eventually, if you sell too much, they'll stop buying from you. There's like the hipsters. There's I forget what they're actually called in the game, but they're like punk rock chicks. There's these old dudes with beards that look like George R.R. Martin. Yeah, and they have different like characteristics that to buy your stuff. There's that at some point you'll get to open up like your own studio. There's like an actual critic that'll come in and critique your paintings. But the point is that you also have to balance, because you have to pay bills. You have to pay your rent. You have to pay money for wine, and you have to pay money for baguettes. And if you can't cover that, you're going to starve to death. So you can spend a lot of time making a nice painting, which actually the very first painting I did, and I ended up almost starving because I didn't realize
you're trying to make a really nice painting.
Yeah, I made a nice painting for me anyway, And it did eventually sell for quite a bit, especially considering it was my first. But I spent a lot of time on it, and therefore my money was getting depleted. I think you start off at like 180 or 100 euros or whatever it is. And then, so you have to balance it between making these really nice things that will probably sell for a good amount and people like more, or you slap this quick avant-garde bullshit, that paint where people like throw paint at a canvas literally and sell it for thousands. That sort of thing, which is a lot quicker, but it's not going to sell for as much if it sells at all. Like I had my daughter was napping when I started playing it, and then she woke up, and I let her actually make some paintings, which is pretty cool, by the way, if you have kids, to let them play. But I didn't tell her this, but like one of her paintings was like all pink, and she basically, because she likes pink, and she like colored it all pink, and then made like a different shade of pink with spray, and that was it. She called it Pinkza, like pizza, pink pizza, and named it Pinkza.
It's actually pretty clever.
Yeah. And it's not selling. People don't like the all pink.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to balance it out that way. Like I said, I haven't gotten as far, but the concept in itself is pretty cool. It kind of takes place on like your puppets on a stage too. That's like kind of the aesthetic that you're looking at.
Yeah.
But the concept is cool that you can actually draw in the game and people buy it. It's a little bit of a sim management with like art skills,
like an art vibe. I think the thing that attracts me to it is just because it's so out of left field for me. Because I don't do Sims and I don't do paint games. I mean Mario Paint, but I don't know. There's something about this that makes me feel like I will probably put a shitload of time into this, just trying to impress, NPCs. Yeah, like it's a really cool idea. Like even if it's not your thing, like I think that there's a really big crowd for something like this. So
I'm actually kind of jealous because this guy's paintings compared to mine are not bad, especially considering that it's all mouse based. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I always get impressed because they actually have examples on their website of some paintings and they're like really good. And there's some weird achievements too. Like if you copy the Mona Lisa, you get an achievement. If you scrap a painting after a certain amount of time working on it, you get an achievement, which
nice.
I did accidentally because there's no undo. One thing that pisses me off is that there's no undo button.
Right.
Which I guess
that makes sense.
Really
yeah.
You can't do in real life. But I ended up like thinking there was an undo button, but it ended up scrapping my whole painting. I was like, well, fuck.
That's not what I wanted to do.
That's however many minutes I worked on it and wasted.
Right.
So, but it's kind of interesting, and it kind of goes along with the whole artist vibe of like you kind of hate yourself and you hate your work type thing.
Right, but you keep doing it because it's what you love to do.
Yeah, and you need to pay bills.
And right, gotta get those baguettes, bro.
And you can actually haggle with the people, but the thing is, if you haggle too much, they'll like basically get down to a point that was less than the original offer and be like, hey, this, fuck you, then you either take this or I leave and you don't get paid at all. And there is, speaking of another achievement, there is an achievement to like just flat out reject them after that. Like after a certain amount of time, he's like, hey, look, you're a plebe. That's my word of the day, I guess. So I'm not taking your money. And you kind of like that really hoity-toity, I'm an artist type of thing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
Man, what would you draw in this game?
Oh, man, just penises and swastikas. That's all I know how to draw.
Well, Indie Game Riot does not condone the use of anti-Semitic symbols.
Absolutely not.
Penises, on the other hand. Go ahead.
Just draw the dick and balls you want.
It's a swastika made out of penises.
Classic.
Passpartout is made by Flame Bait Games. I gotta look it up on Passpart. Look it up on Steam. It is currently $9.99 on Steam.
Oh, that's worth it.
It is actually not part of the Steam sale. So if you're listening to this during the Steam sale, Steam sale, which is happening at the time of this recording. It is not part of that, but still, $10. Come on, it's not that much to support an indie dev studio. If you want to throw in an additional $5, you can get their original soundtrack as well, which I appreciate. It's not something I would listen to on a day-to-day, but it's good nevertheless. It's relaxing, and it definitely fits the feel. Are they making McDonald's fries? What are they doing?
Yeah, I was looking at that too. Like, I don't... Or it's fire?
Maybe. Anyway, but it does fit the feel of this whole thing. It's kind of a weird... I don't know if there's going to be like more to a story than what there's already that you see.
It seems pretty open-ended, so maybe like
there are multiple endings.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the achievements, there are multiple endings. It's just kind of a weird aesthetic because like it's like a puppet show on a stage, and they keep the aspect ratio in that weird what do you call it, 14:9? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That blocky, like old school TV aspect ratio. But it works. I'll say that. Flamebait Games, $9.99. Go check it out. Passpartout, the starting artist. If you know French, tell me how about I'm butchering it, and let me know how to actually pronounce it.
You would think it'd be on the website.
Yeah, I'm just reading the comments, make sure, because I keep forgetting that there are comments in the chat. I've tried. Prep was talking about you can actually sell modern and art as a political statement. I've actually tried. I was like, I'm gonna be angry. I'm just gonna draw fucking red everywhere. It took forever to sell it. I was like red, and then I drew like a black outlined head with like blue, like teary eyes. It was like red, and then I was like, that's anger. Because I'm an artist, as you all know.
Because I'm an artist.
It took forever to sell. No one liked it.
That's funny.
Even Picasso had his MS Paint face.
That's true.
Did he? Well, I want to see some of his MS Paint drawings.
Oh. Well, so Microsoft Paint is a...
Did they have that back then?
No, unfortunately.
He actually didn't...
Finger painting.
Like, compared to, like... For the longest time, before I really, like... was an adult... I thought Picasso... Like, I thought all these artists... These famous artists were, like similar to, like, classical music people. You know what I mean? Like, they died in the fucking 1700s or something like that. And... Like, at some point during my teenage years, I was like, Picasso died in, like, the 60s or something.
Yep.
I was like, well, shit. Like, he's not even that old, comparably. Interesting. Anyway, we all
Somebody
know that
knew him.
Your paintings won't be famous, and you won't make money until you're dead. And
that's usually how it works,
That's the play of the artist, and nothing matters. We're all going to die. With that said, we're going to go to Peep Show.
Please give all your attention to... Early Access.
This week on Peep Show, we're having a peep, a gander, a look at Northgard. Northgard is by Shiro Games. It is a city builder of sorts, and taking place in the Viking-esque time landscape, I guess you could say.
Like the Norse mythology.
Norse is what I was looking for, and once again, I've proved that I apparently need more medication.
High five to me.
Yeah. But anyway, you are Vikings looking for places to live out in the ocean, because that's what Vikings do when they're not pillaging and other uncouth things to do. By the way, these people that made Northgard, I didn't realize immediately, but they also made Evoland.
Oh, yeah. I thought that name looked familiar. Yeah, Evoland 2. Yep, Shiro Games.
Yeah, Evoland, Evoland 2, and Until Dark, which I actually had not heard of that, but it looks cool. So if you're wondering why that sounds familiar. Basically...
it's Warcraft.
Kinda. It's kind of like...
It's real pretty looking.
It is real nice. I feel like it's kind of like... I feel like it's kind of like more Age of Empires than it is Warcraft.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but I've not actually been able to play it myself because they didn't respond to me with the game key or anything like that. But that is alright. But from what I've been able to see of it, and from the gameplay I've seen, and from the trailer and such, that's kind of the gist I get from it.
Yeah.
It's currently on Steam for $16.99. Again, early access. But
So be wary.
they actually just put out on the 20th. I didn't even see this before, but they put out on the 20th what they're going to be putting out in the next patch. Looks like they are there's a bunch of bug fixes, little new features, make Northgard better. You can see small but quite significant more to come. Well, defense tower. I don't know if that's new or not. They're talking in their update like everyone that's reading this owns the game, which they probably do, but I don't. So I don't know what they're talking about because they don't say what they updated in the text. They're like, it's in the screenshot below. I'm like, well, it's
Right, and if you're not playing the game, then
it's all new to me.
Right.
I
mean, if you want to trust user reviews, I mean, it's got over 3,000 very positive reviews, or it's overall very positive with 3,400 reviews, and it's in early access, so that's extremely promising.
I found out what they just put in because they actually just updated it on the 22nd afterwards. They put in a player profile, which I don't know if that matters to you or not, but the thing that they were talking about is a strategic map. So they have a mini map that shows you obviously the map of your gameplay area, but they have it so that way you can see the borders of and this is where the Warcraft thing comes in, the borders between you and the other I don't know if I would call it civilizations, but the other tribes. Is that what is like the proper term for Viking, for like small groups of Vikings?
A horde,
a murder.
A murder of Vikings.
Yeah. But they updated with that UI changes. They're working with DirectX, which is DirectX is one of those things I hate and love.
Yeah, I mean it's good when it's great when it's great, and it's terrible when it's terrible.
AI improvements, anti-cheating, stuff like that. So, I personally love city building games, which is why I was drawn to this in the first place. Age of Empire. The problem with that though is I haven't found anything that has satiated my city building, like the strategy city building lust that I've had since Age of Empires 2. Age of Empires 3 was terrible. Other ones were like good, but not reaching
what you were looking for.
Like Banished was good, but it just like it reached a plateau.
Are you a Crusader Kings kind of guy?
I have Crusader Kings, but there was, I forget why, I haven't played it for a long time, but there was something that ended up making me stop. I forget what it was.
A lot with these games with me, it's the learning curve that kind of pushes me back. So like I mentioned Crusader Kings, so like a buddy of mine for I don't know how many years now has been trying to get me into Crusader Kings, and finally he sent me a link to this playlist of YouTube videos. It was like, hey, this is just like a tutorial of how to play the game. There was like 20 videos, and I'm like, and they're all like 30 minutes long. I'm like, the tutorial should not take this long. Like, I just want to get into the game and have fun. Like, and this, I will be happy to rope this style of game right into the whole Dark Souls, Bloodborne of like, these games look great. I'm sure it has a giant audience, but this game is just not for me. But boy, it looks awesome.
I mean, there's some. I think that's more of a development thing. Like that, it's hard for these kinds of games. This and 4X games tend to be very overwhelming, and have a high like a steep learning curve, and it's really hard to kind of balance it out and make sure that new players don't get scared off.
Right. So you dance on the rope of, okay, so what do? Do we try to overhaul the tutorial so that it's easy to learn how to play the game and dumb the game down? Or do we just completely rip off Civilization and then build off of that?
Is the example of doing it well.
Yeah.
I mean, it is still a steep learning curve, but they do tutorials very well and they ease you into it. And they have a really nice array of difficulty. from like ridiculously easy to like just about impossible. It's impressive. I've seen people play like the really hard difficulty on that. It's the other civilizations get super aggressive. But anyway,
yeah. Sure.
So some things that are kind of usual to the city builder genre is different victory conditions, conquest. In this case, conquest, fame, war, and trading. So you'd have to dig deeper into that to figure out what those actually mean. But there are different victory conditions, so you can play different ways, have different strategies. Managing your resources is probably the number one thing, obviously, so you can expand your territory. There's a little bit of a Dwarf Fortress feel to it with the whole assigning your Vikings to various things, various jobs. You don't like Dwarf Fortress?
Man, I just you want to talk about a game that is just I can just do a 180 and just walk away from it. It's fucking Dwarf Fortress.
Man, like we talked about so many games like No Moria, and even last week we talked about Oxygen Not Included and stuff like that.
Yep. Man.
One thing that's cool though is that you can play against your friends. There is a multiplayer aspect to this if you prefer. Otherwise, you're playing against AI with different difficulties, and they have different personalities. Some of the civilization, so that always adds a nice twist to everything. Do you have any other?
I'd keep my eye on it. Like I think like
what? So you don't like city builders really? What would pull you into it? Like if you could think of something, like if you're looking at the game, you're like, what could they add, or what might intrigue you that they already have that you'd be like, okay, well maybe, because I'm kind of like that with shmups, and the Souls type games, and I was like that with roguelikes for a long time.
Yeah.
So what would be like? Maybe they could sprinkle in a bit of a different genre or a certain mechanic that you're not happy with or something like that.
I think for something like this, I look for familiarity. So, like if I pull up the menu and it looks like the menu from Warcraft 2, of which it kind of does. If you can look on the right here, where when you're picking the buildings that you want to build, like that's very Warcraft 2 to me, or StarCraft. Like if I get into the game and I feel like, oh, I already know how to do 50% of this because I already know what the keyboard shortcuts are, or I already know what the middle click and the right click do. Like that builds my confidence into the game, and then I can learn from there. But if I have to relearn, a 256 key keyboard shortcut and, a 4 or 5 button mouse.
So you either want that simplified or maybe set as like a uniform.
I want that
thing.
warm blanket feeling when I get into this, because like I don't want to say that I don't mind learning how to play a new and different game.
You want the game to give you your bubba.
Right. Yes, exactly. Like I want my binky in my mouth, and I want, I don't want anybody to talk to me. I just want to be, But I
kill those motherfuckers.
Exactly. Like I feel like for games like this, for me anyway, there has to be some sort of line of familiarity for me, just so it's easier for me to feel like, oh no, this is a safe place. Like I kind of know what I'm doing, and I need my deaths to be justified. That's another big thing to me. Like if I lose in a campaign, like the reason I lose needs to be cut and dry. It can't just be like, oh, well, this random thing happened and it was, 300 kilometers away where you were, so game over.
You don't like things out of your control.
Maybe not even out of my control. Like I just need to know about it. Okay. Like I always turned off Fog of War. Like I hated Fog of War.
But it makes it more realistic.
That's great. I'm playing a video game. Like I don't need realism. I wanna know what the fuck the dude is doing that's over the ocean. You know what I mean? Like I want to know what he's building.
Well, some games though have like that. Like going back to Civilization, it has Fog of War. Like you have to explore the map, but it has mechanics like spies and things like that into it.
Which is cool. I'm cool with that. Yeah. But Like if it's just straight old school Fog of War, then I don't want anything to do with it.
One thing I was looking at the gameplay, it's cool that I think it looks like there's weather patterns in this. Like there was snow
Yeah, I just saw that. It looked
away.
like it went from snow to spring.
And it also looks like there's like little landmarks in here. I guess you could, from what it looks like, you could compare it to like natural wonders in Civilization. Like there was that giant tree.
Yep.
It looked like it could do something special. So that's kind of cool. Something different from like Age of Empires.
I'm intrigued for sure.
You know, also I'm intrigued with.
Could it be some free fun?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
It's going mobile.
Who doesn't need some free mobile fun? This time around, we have Fallen London. It's available on the App Store for iOS and the Google Play Store. Fallen London, just to read the description, is discover a darkness and hilarious gothic underworld where your actions have consequences. And did we mention it's free? It is. So if you're a fan of any kind of Cthulhu, Leviathan, turn of the century London creepiness, Fallen London is a man, what's the best way to say this? It's a choose your own adventure / RPG where you create your own character. You have stats, and then once you journey into the underground of London, you are presented with a bunch of choices and things to do, and how you react to those things with your stats will actually encourage the outcome.
There were games in like the late 90s, early 2000s that this reminds me of, but I can't think of any examples. But I used to love them. And when you told me about this game, I was like, oh my God. And then I realized that they have to make money and they limit your actions.
Right.
Which kind of was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's the free-to-play point of it. So I think you get like 20 actions a day.
Yeah.
And then they refresh an action over like an hour or two. Or you could pay to get an extra 20. The one game I can think of that I played like this back on my old flip phone
Shit.
was a sim like this, but it was based in school. So you were like a high school kid, and anytime you had to make a decision if you wanted to go to class or if you wanted to goof off or if you had to study or talk to the girl or that kind of thing.
There were man, I wish I could think. I can't remember them anymore. There were a lot of. It kind of reminds me of like some of those RPG forums too.
Yeah.
Obviously, the forums are a lot less fancy, but it kind of reminds me in that way too. Like, but a really good one. And if you don't know Fail Better Games, they're the same people that made Sunless Sea, soon to make Sunless Skies. I think is what they're calling it. The next installment. This kind of, I believe, takes place in that universe, except specific. Instead of the whole Sunless Sea, it's just taking place in the London area.
Right. Which
there's plenty of stories in there. If you played Sunless Sea, it's very similar to this, except more of a video game and less of a free-to-play game on mobile or browser. But it's very heavily narrative, and it's about kind of like piecing different stories together to create a grander story. So I think the coolest thing about it is for me is that RPG aspect you mentioned, where based on your stats is how things turn out, or you can whether or not you can do certain options.
Right. Yeah. So like some of the things that you can do in the town. So to give you an example, like once you first start off, you're basically just standing in a roadway with buildings on either side. So there's a bar where there's once you enter the bar, you can either sing a song or do stand-up comedy. There is a gentleman looking for playwrights. There is a hotel manager who's down on his luck because he can't get rid of his tenants that aren't paying.
You can get an affair with a married woman.
Yep. So all of these things have interesting consequences. So the thing that attracted me to this game is there was an interview with them, I want to say on Kotaku, They regularly change out the main writer of the story. So there's over 3,000 written pages of storyline for this game. And they consistently switch out writers so that they can build on different aspects that the writer is good on building. So one of the images that they gave as an example in the game is that you are sitting in a banquet hall and you are staring off into the wall, and behind you is a table filled with lavish people in beautiful dress, and they're eating meals. And what you hear is the sound of breaking bones and screams and tearing of flesh. But when you look into the mirror, you see them just plainly eating with forks and spoons and being quaint and polite. But the sounds that you hear are of like basically animals ripping apart carcasses. So you realize that it's the mirror that's lying to you. So that was one of the tie-ins that they were when they were being interviewed, and I was like, totally dumped my pants and started playing. So
it's almost like the D&D mechanics too, as far as like the stats go and
yes,
you can choose and how it affects the outcome and sort of thing. I mean, D&D obviously a little bit more random chance with dice rolls.
Sure.
But, it's kind of cool. And so crossing two things I love D&D and I love Choose Your Own Adventure, because I was like totally into Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventures when those came out. Just like makes me like, if it wasn't for that 20 turn thing, because I refuse to pay money to mobile games,
right? Yeah.
I'll watch ads, whatever, but I refuse to pay money to mobile games because I got other things to pay money for. But if it wasn't for that, I'd be just lost in this story. This would be my world. I almost want to live in that world, to be honest.
I'm telling you, man, like it's some of the writing is just so thought provoking. Like, I'm trying to remember. One of the scenes that I went into when I was playing it was the hotel manager. He was like down on his luck, and he's like, "Yeah, I got these tenants. I can't get rid of them. Yada yada yada. Maybe there's something you could do for me." I was like, "All right, sure, yeah, I could do something for you, maybe." So like you go in and like I think I used my buff or whatever to kind of persuade them to get out because I was big and bulky and blah blah blah. But I was approached by some woman who was telling me about great riches. And a neighboring town if I took out this one particular guy, and then if I did that, then they would leave. And I was like, oh, sweet. So I would solidify my contract with the manager, and I would get money because I took this other guy out. So I go do the mission, and then I came back to find that the manager had been gutted, and like his organs had been removed because apparently the people that were living in the hotel that would leave were they just harvest organs and then go sell them on the black market. I was like, what the fuck did I do? Like, I was like, oh my God. And then like, I couldn't do anything with the hotel anymore. And I was like, oh man, the implications, what happened? Like, why did I get so pushed away by this bullshit story about, knocking this dude off? Oh man. I was like, how do I go back and do it differently?
When it makes you like heartbroken, that's when you're just like,
it's really, really good.
There's no sticking your finger in the previous part of the book and flipping to see what you...
Right, yeah, there's no rewind button.
Yeah, I used to cheat hardcore. Choose Your Own Adventures.
Absolutely.
I was like, I ain't got time to reread this shit.
Answer? Nope, shit. Okay,
but you know what we do have time for?
I think it's our goodbyes, isn't it?
Yeah, we have time for the end of the show. If you like what we do and you want to help us grow, you want to help us do fancier things, reach our goals, that sort of thing, we have those goals listed on patreon.com/Indie Game Riot. $1 more is always super appreciated. I always suggest like $5 a month, and that's like one Starbucks coffee, and you sacrifice one of those for us, and it helps us greatly. And you get different rewards at different tiers, kind of like how Kickstarter works. Also, I mentioned earlier, we're on Twitch. If you haven't noticed, those listening live, but if you're listening on YouTube, we're on Twitch. We do live shows. You can always subscribe on Twitch now, because that's a thing that we can do now as of today. And of course, that helps us as well. If you have a Twitch Prime account, what was it, every month? You can
so every 30 days you can re-up and subscribe to a different channel.
There you go. You can subscribe. Every month you can change. Every 30 days you can change your Twitch Prime subscription. It's free, and we still get $5 out of that. So thank you for your consideration. The other thing is you can contact us with news pieces, people to interview, games to check out through various means. We're on Twitter at IGR Podcast or Facebook.com/IGR Podcast. Of course, you can email us, contact@indiegameriot.com. You can also find us on Discord, by the way. Oh, one other thing, too, I wanted to mention is that I don't know if it's due to the Steam sale or if it's because just Steam switched up how things work, but our curator page is suddenly exploding. Like, in less than a week, we've grown by like 200 followers.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Which previously, I mean, we were growing pretty steadily, but it was steady. You know, it was like 10 here, 15 there. So if you're interested, we have a curator page on Steam, Indie Game Riot. Lastly, thanks again to Eric Hunter, Eric M. Hunter. You can follow him at Eric Hunter without the M.
That's correct.
Or go to ericmhunter.net to check out his podcast. It's currently called #Radio, I believe, unless you changed it.
It is. No, that's it.
#Radio. And he talks about a bunch of different things, but he definitely concentrates on views as a console gamer, especially when it comes to indie games on consoles and playing as a console gamer.
There you go.
If you're interested in that, check out his website and Twitter. Say hi. Send him dick pics.
Yeah, I'll respond to him.
Yeah.
I'm not a medical physician
like,
or anything, but it's...
Well, he'll like judge him like hot or not.
Exactly. It's just a yes or a no. So.
Swipe left, swipe right. Your advertisement on Grindr. Anyway, thank you again, and thanks to all those listening live. Do you have anything else to say, Eric?
Keep on gaming.
Yeah, what he said. Indie Revolution Expo coming up. Make sure you're there. Say your goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Super.